So when we're connecting project management with engineering, obviously crucial, what do you think are some of the key benefits for integrating those two disciplines effectively, specifically on AEC projects?
Find that you have fewer design rework cycles. If the PM has an engineering background, the PM will then be able to kind of have foresight into sort of the risk, understanding what is it that we're going to get into. Is this something we've done before? How can we reduce rework pretty much in any discipline? And having better skills.
Did you know that even the most technically sound engineering plans can derail if they're not supported by a solid project mindset? In the world of AEC, technical brilliance and structured leadership go hand in hand, but many professionals still struggle to balance the two. In today's episode, we're joined by Jose Matteo, Master of Business Administration, Master of Science in Electrical Engineering, Project Management Professional, and Certified Scrum Master. A project leader who's built his career at the intersection of engineering and project management. We'll be talking about how integrating these two mindsets can strengthen collaboration across teams, lead to more accurate schedules, and reduce costly misalignments in the field. Jose will provide practical tips on how to shift your thinking, whether you're an engineer stepping into leadership or a project manager working with technical teams. If you're looking to lead smarter, this is the episode for you. Before we jump in, I want to tell you about our AEC PM Connect event, built for project managers who want to improve project delivery, communication, and leadership through practical sessions and tools. These events provide an avenue to connect with leading PMs in the industry. Visit aecpmconnect.com and register today. We currently have events in Kansas City and New Jersey, with more coming. I'm your host, Fiona Johan, and this is the AEC Project Management Podcast. Let's jump right in.
Transform your technical experts into impactful leaders with EMI's Engineering Leadership Accelerator. Tailored for AEC professionals, this program enhances communication, delegation, and decision-making skills. Flexible, interactive, and designed to fit your team's schedule. Elevate your team's leadership capabilities today. Visit engineeringmanagementinstitute.org and click on Corporate Training.
All right, and now it's time for our PM Conversation of the Week with Jose Matteo. It's an MBA, MSEE, PMP, and CSM. So welcome to the Project Management Podcast. I thought we could start with just a bit about your background and the path that led you to project management.
Yes, Fiona. Hey, thank you for having me on the podcast. I'll give you a quick bit of my background. So my education was originally as an engineer. I have a bachelor's in biomedical engineering. I worked for a few biotech companies. What led me to project management from engineering was actually kind of an escalation in leadership in projects. So going from being a junior engineer to becoming a senior engineer and leading projects, it eventually led me to spearhead several projects, which led me to find out that I enjoy doing that. That's why I like to have one foot in the technical, one foot in the business side, which led me to my MBA. So that's kind of the way I've worked from engineering to PM.
That's great. The MBA is a crucial point in there, it sounds like. What made you decide to go pursue that?
Yeah, so that was actually once I started getting into leading more projects as an engineer, as a senior engineer, I started getting mentorship from PMs. So in many organizations, you don't have enough PMs to PM every project. So they have engineers leading them. I was the engineer leading some of those projects. So I eventually started kind of associating with the PMs, finding out how they worked. And it was something that was suggested to me to, kind of get some of that education that you don't have. So engineers sometimes do not have the business side. I'm one of those engineers that was very interested in learning that side. So that was the step to kind of go being full technical to technical and leadership.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. Just because we know the engineering or the technical side, that project management training and that background and the business development, that's also important to understand the whole big picture, which kind of leads me to my next question. So, when we're connecting project management with engineering, obviously crucial, what do you think are some of the key benefits for integrating those two disciplines effectively, specifically on AEC projects?
Yeah. So the key benefits of integrating the disciplines of engineering and project management, going into specific benefits, I'm going to give you kind of three of the big ones. So number one, I would find that you have fewer design rework cycles. So if the PM has an engineering background, usually the PM will then be able to kind of have foresight into what are the risks, understanding, depending on the discipline, what is it that we're going to get into? Is this something we've done before? How can we reduce reworks pretty much in any discipline? Number two is kind of having better schedules, right? So if you can eliminate rework and you understand the deliverables, then you can certainly make better schedules up front. And then number three, I would go into stronger change management, right? So a PM that has an engineering background will be able to manage that piece better.
Yeah, the change management's always such a complicated beast, and you need all the pieces to make it happen, right? Because you're influencing all these people, and you have to convince them that this is the best change because we all know that people, well, I think it's usually like a statistically a 60-40 split on if they're gonna like your new change or not, and you gotta drag the 40% along with you.
Right.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. And so from your experience, how does adopting this engineering mindset influence the decision-making process? So you talked about change management, particularly how can you use that when you're navigating complex project constraints?
Yeah. So I think having an engineering mindset, it really sets you up to look at things at a systems level. So you're putting them both together, right? So you're thinking about, let's say, schedule, cost, every constraint, but you're also thinking about, okay, what are the technical components I need to address? How are they going to interact in the system? How can I schedule my deliverables so that I have these interactions in play at the times that I need to optimize scheduling? So that would be one, right? So I think having that systems level thinking is critical, which I think a PM would have, but a PM with engineering is going to have it even down to that level of whatever it is the product that you're making. So in a medical device, you're thinking about, okay, pharma, software, hardware, biologics, what have you. So I think that would be certainly the big one. Is having the systems level thinking and thinking down to components and component interactions.
Yeah, it all comes down to that work breakdown structure, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how we can apply it to every system we're in. It's such
Yeah.
a big deal in a project, project management. We're always trying to like, how do we get this task done? What are the pieces of the task? And it sounds like you've got many different types of projects that you're doing that for, which is commendable. It's a lot of different things to think about.
Yeah.
So, what do you think, or how do you think a project manager's mindset can complement the technical engineering roles, especially if you're talking about cross functional teams or multidisciplinary teams?
Yeah. So as a project manager, I think having that in front, right? So having that mindset kind of as your first filter, it helps you keep the vision and outcome kind of at the forefront of your mind, right? So instead of having that engineering mindset that many engineers do have, which is the focus on solving effective challenges and optimizing design, you have that, but you also have, okay, what is the actual business need? What is the goal? What is the scope? What is the timeline? And who are our stakeholders? So even though you're trying to come up with a very elegant design for whatever the issue is, you also have the, okay, well, we need to do it inside of this constraint. So I think having the ability to be creative inside of a constraint, I would leave that for the PM or a kind of a very senior engineer leader, because I think if you let engineers run, they will optimize for the on as engineers should, right? So I
Yeah,
think that
yeah.
that's a one big compliment. Mhm.
I think you're getting in a little bit into, as you grow in your engineering knowledge and then also your project management knowledge, you get towards, out of the engineering tasks and more towards the creativity that's required in project management a little bit. And there's often some disconnects between the way our brains like to work around like an engineering mindset and task and also like the way you need to think in project management. So can you maybe you've seen some common disconnects between engineers and project managers? And do you have any suggestions for how organizations can proactively bridge those gaps to be the most successful?
Yeah, so I think the one of the big disconnects that I'll start with is I guess the definition of success, going back to the previous question. So a PM will focus kind of on, like I said, the scope, the timeline, the budget, where an engineer will focus on kind of a technical elegance or innovation aspect. And then the way you would kind of mitigate or bridge the issue is to have a clear understanding of what success is, what done is, have constant communication, constant planning, which directly impacts also like kind of timeline estimates, right? So PMs will always give aggressive timelines, which then will lead to engineers feeling rushed or under pressure. I think it's important for PMs to understand that if you're, depending on what you're doing, it may require more time. So if it's an innovation project, certainly most PMs will know that that's going to take more time than something where you're kind of just doing a system integration. So I would say those two are big ones and they're directly tied. So definition of success and then directly tied to timeline estimation.
Absolutely. It's really important to understand the all the things involved in the task you're asking someone to do, right? You have to have like a pretty good understanding of those tasks in order to get the accuracy in your scheduling. So around that, we all struggle with schedule accuracy, as you alluded to. Do you have any strategies or tools you'd recommend for building more reliable schedules and making better approximations?
Yeah, so I think that's a tough question, and I think we would all like to be able to predict the future. I think
Do you
that,
have a magic answer for us?
ah, you know what, I wish I did. But I think the most magical thing we can do is be smart, right? So if you have historical data at your organization, leverage that uh, right off the bat. I think senior PMs that'll be one of the first things they look for is what are the existing project plans so that they can look at estimates for commonly repeated tasks. And you could certainly use that as kind of anchor points for your WBS, right? And then also looking at benchmarking specific project types in the region or in certain organizations that are similar to the organization that you're in. So that would be one, right? So using historical data and analogous estimating. And then number two is integrating risk buffers, right? So having a risk buffer up front that is agreed upon by stakeholders is critical. So that's going to help you to kind of not pad, but mitigate for, I guess, issues or deliverables where you're going to run into issues and you can kind of predict that, right? So risk mitigation and buffering up front.
I think those are such great points. I think one thing we do as project managers is tend to rush the planning stages. And in those planning stages is where you look at that historical data and you learn from the past. And hopefully last time you completed your, post project, let's go through this, lessons learned, because there's so much important information there where you can skip so many issues if you pause and think and reflect. And it's so tempting to just get to let's get to the executing because that's the part that feels good, right? The planning and the initiating, that sometimes it feels so tedious, and how could I possibly account for all these variables? But as you mentioned, like the buffers around your tasks to make sure, we're avoiding these risks or at least planning for them is just so important. And that all comes back to that planning stage that you just have to sit in some of the discomfort of the unknown and go back and see what people learned or what you learned from, and that can be the self-reflective bit can be tough too. So I feel like that's just such an important part to hit home. And if if you take one thing away from my thoughts today, or what you've given us today, is that, sit in that and think ahead and look back at lessons learned. That's
Yeah.
can be an uncomfortable place, but it's so important. Well, that leads us kind of to our final question, what we tend to refer to as the PM pitfalls question. So, what is the biggest pitfall that you've identified, and how would you recommend overcoming it or avoiding it for project managers out there?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest pitfalls for PMs, engineering or not, is assuming alignments instead of actively managing alignment. So assuming that stakeholders have agreed to a specific decision without documenting it. Depending on the industry, it may have to be documented, which will save you from this issue, partly. But certainly, you never want to assume that a stakeholder has agreed to something. I think it's better to clarify things twice or three times before running forward. This will eliminate the need for, like I said before, reworks and unnecessary kind of cycling inside of the development process. And I think that also goes into, outside of just agreement, also understanding of what the agreement is, right? So does the stakeholder understand what we're agreeing to? Is it very technical? Do I need to uh, kind of modulate my communication style for a business, kind of a business side stakeholder, that they understand what we're saying? If it's kind of like a very technical engineering task or set of tasks that they're agreeing to, and how does that impact the schedule and everything else inside of the project plan? So I think certain bottom line, make sure you have alignment and that everybody agrees in a very clear and distinct way. So everybody knows that everybody agrees before moving forward.
Absolutely. I think you hit two really good points in there. One of them is never assume. That should be baseline everywhere. But also the other one I really liked in there is the communication piece with your stakeholders, right? Your stakeholders are not all in the same mindset, in the same technical expertise as you, and having to communicate those alignments over a various group of people is so important. And do you have any, while we're on it, you have any ideas or thoughts on the best ways to do that, or experiences you've had that could help others?
Or communicating?
Yeah, well, just in general, sometimes you're communicating with like someone who's a little more business focused, like you mentioned, versus you're communicating with someone who's a little more technically focused, versus someone who just like, we need this project done yesterday. So what are some tools or tricks or just, things we can pull out of our back pocket to remember that?
Absolutely. I think you have to think before you send the email. You have to be very clear on who's going to be reading the email. You don't want to send, I'll just use an example, a very complex diagram with equations for a circuit board to an executive leader, because that's not their prerogative. They would just need to know, okay, well, how long is it going to take? How much is it going to cost? Who's the supplier? When do we get the prototypes? How does that impact the schedule? So make sure who are you communicating to and what do they need to know. So I think certainly that's one thing you have to take the time to do, is make sure you know, does this stakeholder need to know all of this? Because you have to control the flow of information.
Absolutely. And that comes back to building those relationships with those stakeholders as well. So you
Yeah,
get to know them, right? Person
absolutely.
A wants all the details. Person B wants like, when is this going to be done? Is it
Yeah,
tomorrow? And that's going to all help with your keeping your alignment and your assumptions clear. Great. I think that's such a wonderful piece of advice. Please remember, you can find the show notes for this episode at aecpmpodcast.com. There you'll find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during the episode. Until next time, I wish you the best in all of your engineering project management endeavors.